Hi, Pam.
Hi.
How's Mesa, Arizona today?
It is fantastic. It's about 80 degrees and slightly breezy. Paradise.
So you and I just saw each other in person in Arizona last week. And by the time I got back to Argentina, we had really gone into fall and we're having this kind of weird wintry week where it's like 40 degrees outside, which is fascinating.
I'm telling you, you must have a little bit of climate shock there.
You know, do you ever get 40 degrees in Mesa?
Yeah, we do in the wintertime.
Okay. Okay. Great. Desert winters. So thanks so much for talking today. I just want to kind of read your bio to folks who aren't already on the up and up with all the work you've done. Pamela Slim is an award-winning author, speaker, and leader in the new world of work. She spent the first 10 years of her solo practice as a consultant to large corporations such as Hewlett-Packard, Charles Schwab, and Cisco Systems, where she worked with thousands of employees, managers, and executives. In 2005, she started the Escape from Cubicle Nation blog, which is now one of the top career and business sites on the web and also is a book by that same name. She has coached thousands of budding entrepreneurs in businesses ranging from martial arts studios to software startups. Her latest book is called Body of Work, Finding the Thread That Ties Your Story Together. And we all have a thread, even though we maybe don't know it, which is, just one of the many awesome parts of things I learned from your book. So I'd love to just kind of get started by just seeing if you could sort of tell us a little bit more about your journey from corporate employee to, founder of Escape from Cubicle Nation to then this latest sort of phase of body of work essentially being the thing that you're kind of revolving around.
Yeah, I've had it when I look back at my own journey, it's interesting because I've worked in just about every work mode possible. I think it's one of the things that inspired me to write Body of Work. I started out as a passionate social activist studying nonprofit service, not informal service and development in Latin America. So I lived in Mexico and Colombia and totally had a plan for being a, expatriate aid worker. And once I started to get in there and doing the work, I just realized that path wasn't really for me. It didn't align with my beliefs, which are that people should be doing their own development work, and I can be supporting that. So I went, through a number of different work modes. I worked in the nonprofit sector in a foundation. I worked in arts education at the Exploratorium in San Francisco, which I know as a former.
I had my senior prom there.
Did you? Oh, that's a great place to have a senior prom, man. It's cool. Yeah. And then I found myself moving into corporate training and development, which I actually loved. It was so exciting to me. I was at Barclays Global Investors in San Francisco and was really introduced to the formal field of training and development. And to me, it just combined so many interesting systemic things. I've always had this fascination with the human side of business. How do people operate together? How can you get the right people aligned doing the right work? And actually along that journey, when I was working full-time during the day in corporate, I was also by night running a martial art organization as a volunteer for 10 years in the Afro-Brazilian art of capoeira, So I just had this really interesting combination of different work experiences. But I think when I look back at the things that are most energizing for me, first of all, the lens for me of personal growth and development is always work. Like that's where I understand, that's where I get my excitement in working with people to understand themselves, which I love when people kind of they feel good about themselves and they get in their right life. For me, I always do that work through the lens of work because I'm passionate, about it. And then I think the last 11 years really being in the startup world, it's made me exceptionally passionate about the small business market. When we look at everything that's going on in the entrepreneur world, I just read some statistics. I think I might have been sharing this with you the other day that, the small business market is like 53% of the U.S. non-farm GDP, creates 99.7% of jobs, in the U.S. and globally. It'd be interesting to see, how that breaks out. So those are kind of the threads that I see. I believe in economic well-being for all. That's the thread that goes way back to what I studied. But I see that really being worked on when you get the right people in the right jobs, and then you get communities working together in order to create well-being and abundance for all.
I love that. So one of kind of the foundations essentially of body of work of this book is is this idea, or this, I'll just pull the quote, individuals who structure their careers around autonomy, mastery, and purpose will have a powerful body of work. So I'd love to just dive into those three things: autonomy, mastery, and purpose. I don't know, start with the most important one.
Yeah, well, Dan, that is thanks to Dan Pink. So Dan Pink in Drive, in his great book Drive, talked about when he researched what really are the motivation that gets people out of bed in the morning for work. It's not the usual that we think about people wanting more money or, just wanting to have a great boss. Autonomy, being able to feel like you have a say and an impact in the work that you're doing. And I see this manifested in so many different ways, working with different people, where it can be an example of somebody who actually loves to work as an employee for somebody else, but they feel like they were hired for the strengths that they have. Their ideas that they bring to the table are respected. It's not that it's my way or the highway. They can be in great collaboration with people, but they have that feeling that they're able to really do their work according to their biggest strengths and have the autonomy, not having somebody hanging over your head at every minute, telling you it's wrong, telling you how to do the work, getting so complicated about it that you kind of lose your heart and connection to the work.
Yeah, I mean, I think many of us have felt that at many different points in our careers. I think the one thing that's interesting to me is I think autonomy, most people just assume that means you have to be working on your own.
Yeah, and I don't see it that way. And, and Dan, I think, defines it specifically in Drive of really having people that they have a say about their work. They can kind of complete their work without, too much intervention. I don't know if you've ever read the book Why Work Sucks and How to Fix It by Callie and Jody.
I have it on my bookshelf.
But, I love that idea that they put forward of a results-only work environment where you have people who know exactly what's expected and they know the timelines and deadlines, but how that work gets done is really, up to the individual. So the way that I define autonomy in terms of my experience working with so many thousands of people over the years is there are some people who by their nature prefer to work alone, so that would fit that definition. But for other people, it's really about ownership. It's about feeling like you really do have a say around your work and your opinion is respected.
Which is super essential. I mean, I can think of various instances sort of in my life when that wasn't happening, and it wasn't that I even desired to be on my own at that moment or doing my own thing or freelancing, but I just wanted my work to count for something. You don't just want to be kind of the worker bee.
Yeah.
And so when it comes to this idea of mastery and purpose, is that kind of where we get into this idea that all our work, there's this thread tying everything together of what we've done in the past?
For purpose, talking about that before mastery, purpose is that you understand the reason why you are doing the work, and for you to feel connected to it as an individual, that your own values and your passions are aligned with that particular mission. And so there's those two pieces that need to make sense. When I wrote Escape from Cubicle Nation a number of years ago, it was hysterical when I would ask people to submit sometimes like examples of why they felt disconnected from their work. And people would talk about sometimes what happens in a large, huge organization is where they'd be working on some report for something that they didn't really understand how it fed into something else. And it was for some initiative that nobody really understood. Like, why are we actually doing this? How is this benefiting our customers? And so when people don't see, on one hand, why they are spending their time and energy, many, many hours, the majority of their life, right, in work that doesn't make sense, it has a disconnect. You don't feel like it has a purpose. And then to really cement it in terms of your own body of work, it's where you see the impact of the work that you're doing and you deeply believe that impact is important, and you feel like it's the best use of your strengths and skills and interests to be furthering that mission in the world. Like that's really what you want. So the purpose piece is a really important foundation. Mastery then builds on top of it, right? You feel like, okay, my job is to promote economic well-being for all. And so let's look through the lens of how I can support and grow the small business market. How can I be, working to empower entrepreneurs? What do I need to know? Who do I need to know? What skills do I need to have? What do I need to create in order really to be serving that mission? And that's where the mastery that you're building has a context. Right? In a lot of folks that I've worked with that, interestingly, a lot of folks who are coming into the entrepreneurial world are used to thinking about, gosh, should I get an MBA in entrepreneurship? Or, do I need, I only have a bachelor's or I don't have an advanced degree in something. And so we can understand mastery where there can be credibility that it can give within the working world, which we understand because it takes a huge amount of intelligence and effort and energy to complete an advanced degree. I have a bachelor's, so, I always have such great admiration. My brother has a postdoctorate, he's like, he's the brainiac in the family, he went, right? But it doesn't, it has to be in alignment, like where that makes sense with true mastery for the work that you're doing in support of a mission and a purpose that you believe in is where the skills that you're learning are actually directly related, right, to what's going to make you better at the thing that you care about doing. So I always use my dad as an example. He was a big theme, as you know, within Body of Work because he's been such an inspiration to me throughout my life. But he's a photographer, and he's been a photographer now for over 55 years. He's 81, and he's still working as a freelancer. And I have watched my dad through the years very early on. I remember when digital photography first came out, and he is always the kind of person who was just looking to learn whatever that latest technology was. He's always interested as part of a bigger communications team to really understand how photos work together. He's also a journalism major, so he does photojournalism. But I tease him all the time because at 81, he'll still be doing jobs, photography jobs for clients who have known him for decades. They've never not liked the work that he's done. And every single time he turns in a job, he'll always be like, God, I haven't heard back from him in like 2 days. I wonder if they like it. I wonder if my photos are any good, Wow. And to me, he has confidence in what he does, but it speaks to the fact that he just cares so much about every photo that he takes. And he'd like every assignment, he gets that passionate feeling about just wanting to just completely deliver for the client who he's taking the photo for. And like to have that photo be completely, having the folks that view it, like get it and understand the story in such a rich way. And so for me personally, I can't think of a better example of what I've seen about what mastery really means.
So I think one question I have is, you have a quote in Body of Work where you say, the secret to high performance and satisfaction at work, at school, and at home is the deeply human need to direct our own lives and to learn and to create new things. I'm wondering, how do we go about prioritizing this idea of sort of learning and learning from others, whether it be a coach or a mentor, when we're kind of in the thick of, trying to keep the lights on or whatever it may be in our office? And I don't mean keep the lights on in a super dramatic way of someone living in extreme poverty somewhere. I guess I mean keep the lights on in your home office, let's say, or something.
Yeah, well, it's right. Where's the viability in your business? How do you balance like that personal satisfaction and work that you're doing and the viability of a business? And in the area where, and it applies to careers in that you can make a certain choice that you have a passion for doing something and working a certain way. And there are certain professions that you might find the range of salary is going to be one that is set, right? There's not a lot of fixed. So you might decide that it's worth it to you to be taking a position, even though the salary is lower. And the same thing really is true in business. But you always, to me, I always love to be operating in on firm earth of making sure that you are really clear as to what are your financial goals and what are your financial needs. And in many ways, it's a helpful organizing principle. When you're thinking about all the things that you should do, I don't believe it to be true that just do what you love and the money will follow. There's, in that particular book, there's a lot of great advice that goes into that idea. I definitely feel like doing work that you enjoy that's aligned with your values and beliefs and passions is a great idea, as opposed to doing something you don't care about. But within that context, there has to be viability. You have to be selling something that people who have the money to pay, are willing to pay for, and you have to have the skills to know how to present that to people in a sales capacity such that they're willing to give over their credit card or, send you a check in order to do that work. And all of those pieces are part of what, to me, is part of the creative process of being an entrepreneur. It's like, it's good because you can see, and you've seen this working in Silicon Valley for a long time, often if you have an overabundance of money that's being spent, maybe on an idea that doesn't really have economic viability, many millions and millions of dollars can be spent and people can be busy working and creating like amazing stuff. But if there's no lens that that's actually viable and that there's a market for it, then everything really falls apart. So that's a critical part, I think, of how you balance what it is that you're doing. It's like you need to be experimenting at first. I have huge tolerance for risk personally, but when I'm working with other people that don't, it's great to be testing and trying. I always advocate, for example, for people doing a side hustle if they're in a full-time job, of just having small little tests that they can be doing on the side of their day job in order for you to find some veins, right, of viable work that you can start to build. And then in building that work really is where I think that, interest and learning and mastery comes into play. There's so much to learn. It's like overwhelming. But for people who are excited about learning, to me, there's just nothing better. You learn about yourself. You figure your stuff out or you don't survive as an entrepreneur,
Yeah. So today, in 2016, you have your own outside office, you have your assistant in the office next to you, you've built something that is working really well, and you're doing different things to make it work really well. How much of the time do you think you're sort of working in your purpose zone or whatever you call it versus doing stuff that you just sort of have to do to be a person working?
90% probably. Yeah, it's
wow.
It is generally a benefit. Sometimes it has been a little bit of a curse for me, I find it super difficult to be doing work that I don't enjoy doing. I'm just really bad at doing work that I have to slog through. And so, there's times where I've been in business for 20 years. Sometimes you need to keep the lights on. There's a non-ideal project that you have to do. I always try to just stay grounded in real gratitude and appreciation that I have work and just to do my very best and honor that, but I cannot be in that zone for very long. So I work with people who I really enjoy working with, who want to work with me. I choose projects with bigger clients that I really believe in, and then I enjoy that work. I do, content or marketing activities that are in alignment with what I really like. I mean, that is one of my definitions of success. I mean, the core foundation that I talked about in Body of Work in the chapter about success, my definition of success is enjoying my life while I am living it. And so that means that I make certain choices about the work that I do and that I don't do.
Do you think that those choices, that freedom and those choices that you have now, is that something you only have because you've been in this position sort of working it for a decade now? Or did you always try to prioritize this even in the beginning when you were basically bootstrapping it?
Yeah, I think it's more based on, how it is that I'm wired. I have always loved my work. There's been blips. It's like, I've been in organizations sometimes that go through a little challenging situation. There was a couple of years in consulting where I was like making tons of money and not kind of having, some ideal clients, or times where things are really lean, like living through some of the downturns for sure. But it's one of my blind spots sometimes as a coach, because I started working when I was 12. I started working at Swenson's Ice Cream Parlor in San Anselmo, washing dishes for $1.50 an hour. And I loved it. I love being there, and I have never not enjoyed working. That's like, everybody has their thing. That's not my thing, is being stressed out about work. So you can see where it might be a blind spot sometimes for me, right? And as a coach, it's actually one of the reasons why I choose to always refer people, like if I have somebody who might be considering maybe 3 or 4 different directions to go, kind of that has interest in those areas, I can totally work with them to help hone in and figure out the right direction and have them build it. But if somebody just totally has no idea at all about what it is that they want to do, I always refer them to some of my amazing colleagues because that's not my zone. Like my zone is where people know what they want to do or they have a few options and they want to build it. Like I love to create. I love to build. I love to work with people who are like ready to do the work, even if it's hard. Like I love dealing with the hard stuff and, managing fears and all that, but building it. So yeah, it's like one of those things. I even in corporate life, because I wrote Escape from Cubicle Nation, I've done so many interviews over the years about it. And I think an assumption that people have, first of all, is that I hate corporate life, which is not true.
Of course.
I have never been totally anti-corporate. I was a consultant for 10 years. I was in many places where I met amazing people who love what they did, right? There are people in the military and academia and nonprofit and all these different sectors who actually love their work and love to be as an employee, so I'm not anti that. But I also didn't have a horrific experience as a corporate employee. I love my time as a corporate employee. I did. I had the greatest team in the world when I was working at Global Investors, like the most amazing mentors that were actually my boss and the boss above her. So it's interesting. I think, there definitely is some lore that's been developed, around the entrepreneur world. It's easier to have the light and dark side of the force, right? It's easier to say that, one is evil and one is good. That's actually one of the reasons why I wrote Body of Work is because I got really tired of people attributing happiness to a work mode. It is not about the work mode. I don't think.
Tell me what you mean by work mode.
So whether you are a entrepreneur or an employee or work as a contractor, right? Or,
that's the mode.
That's the mode. It's not like you work for yourself and all of a sudden you are free. Like I could introduce, 10 people this moment who feel completely trapped because maybe entrepreneurship is not the right path for them, right? It's about what do you want to create and what are the conditions that will allow you to create that in the best way. So for some people, it is having access to resources. It is having other team members. It's having a regular paycheck that's delivered in your account every 2 weeks so that you can take care of your family. And so that all you need to worry about is, kind of focusing on your job. So that, and again, coming back to my dad, because of course, central theme and Body of Work, but that's like what I saw, the amount of creativity and joy that my dad was able to have in his career. He worked for Pacific Gas and Electric, right, for the utility company PG&E in California in news and corporate communications. And it was a really large company, but it allowed him as a creative person to have the perfect kind of environment to be doing that he really loved to do, working with all kinds of people out in the field, from like linemen to people in customer service. And, so that, I think there's an elitist side to it too that bothers me based on my values of people saying like, only the cool creative people are those people who have their own business. And I just find like, wow, that is so disrespectful to so many other people who are making different choices, for very valid reasons. And also, what does that mean if you have that philosophy as an entrepreneur when you start your business and then you grow and scale your business and you're hiring people? So what about those folks who are working for you?
Then you're creating what you say you hated, right?
Right. Or are they not cool and creative as well? And if you think that, so you see where it kind of feeds on itself.
So another theme in Body of Work is this idea that actually we need to be thinking about sort of reinvention of careers, and we need to be developing skills in different areas to do work. Work isn't, your work today, you're a coach, you're a speaker, you're an author, you're a consultant, you do different things. But then also this idea that we don't even know sort of what's coming next, or that a career that doesn't even exist yet might exist in 5 years, and that might be our thing. So how do we kind of prepare the groundwork for being successful when we don't really know what's going to happen?
Yeah, I think it's, there's one side of it, which is self-awareness. So it's really where you do take the time to reflect on, I call them your ingredients. So your skills, your strengths, your experiences, things that are really part of how you know yourself. What do you really do well? What are some of your natural gifts? And then also your roots, which means what are the issues in the world? What are the problems that you're very passionate about solving? What are the things that you notice that you have great interest and passion about? And just to stay tuned into that's something that actually requires reflection and analysis and constant kind of updating. There's the part of it that really is about self-awareness. How do you really feel? And I know in a lot of the work that I did in Escape from Cubicle Nation with clients who had been in situations where they've been working in corporate for a long time, had just kind of been going along with the paces, and they just stopped asking themselves if they really like doing something, because there was just always that next logical position they would be going to, right? Or the next logical role.
Sure.
And so a big part of the work initially, I called it thawing out your soul, that people have to do is to get back in their body really and start to notice, like, what actually lights me up when I think about something. Is there something that just gets you totally excited? I've always been a transformation nerd. So everything from what not to wear, shows about taking somebody who's frumpily dressed into clothes that work really well, to any kind of, Property Brothers, any kind of home transformation show, to underdog stories about people going from hard times. I noticed that for me, those are things that always get me going, how people make a positive transformation, So that's one big piece of it. And then I think the other piece is where you definitely cultivate and surround yourself with a very specific community, and you make sure that you have people around you that are doing interesting things, that really see you and appreciate you for who you are, that are willing to step in and, help you grow, that are doing interesting activities. We sometimes can kind of just get lulled into being in a safe, comfortable kind of community of people that don't necessarily push us to be growing and thinking about things in a different way. So that's another thing I think that's really important on many different levels. It's also important to be connected with people who can help you understand opportunities in different areas. So again, if somebody has been an employee for a really long time, one of the first pieces of advice that I give them if they want to go into entrepreneurship is to start to surround themselves with other people who are already entrepreneurs, to understand what that's like, and vice versa. People who've been in business who want to then go back to corporate or as an employee, which happens sometimes, for them to then be surrounding themselves with folks who can help them navigate that transition, And then I think the other piece is where you just do start to become aware and take notes and pay attention to the kinds of things that you feel called to build next. The premise of body of work is that because many people, either by choice or by force, are not just going up one particular ladder anymore, right? They may, not just progress from recent college graduate accountant to, senior accountant, that they may have many totally different types of careers. So part of what you want to start to pay attention to is, what am I really excited about creating? What do I want to get involved in? Maybe you're really super excited about, I have a lot of folks I met when I was on a tour last year, people in small communities who were super interested in the revitalization of small towns and, economic development. And that could be something where you can start to pay attention and say, wow, I'm super interested in that. What might be projects in that arena that I'm interested in? Or I'm passionate about wellness, and balance. And maybe I think the next part of my body of work that I want to pursue is something around solving that particular problem. So I think a lot of it is where it's a combination of awareness and then organization of your information around that, because we all have random thoughts all the time. Sometimes I wish I could turn off my brain, but all kinds of ideas that we have, but you need to pay attention and to write them down, or clip an Evernote file or something like that, because it's when you look back and you start to notice the patterns in the articles that get you excited, and in initiatives that are happening, or cool people that you really want to meet, that's when you can start to see some of the threads and patterns that can inform you about what's that next thing that you want to work on.
That's awesome. So I have one kind of final question, and it's, if you were working with a coaching client and this person came to you and, had two very distinct plans, plan A and plan B. And, plan A is to build something or to launch some product that they're very passionate about, but they, somehow, because this is a magical hypothetical scenario, know that this is only going to earn them $50,000 next year. Let's just say that. And then plan B is something that they're actually not that passionate about. It's not a negative, but it's not really that interesting to them. But they know they could earn 3 times that. And they're saying, Pam, I'm just getting started. I don't know, which direction do I go?
Decision criteria. It's all about the decision criteria, which is going to be different for different people. So if your number one decision criteria for deciding what direction to go is about profitability and money, then the answer is easy, right? You're willing to trade a sacrifice. If part of your decision criteria, and it's often many, is time. So maybe you one of the things that's important to you is that you spend lots of time with your family. You and I are both parents of, relatively small children. And so it's like having time to spend could be one. Part of your decision criteria could be the people who you're working with. If it's really important to you that you have the chance to be working with some totally amazing people who you've always admired on the $50,000 project side, and less than exciting group of people on the other one, that can be your decision. But this is an example of where, for that particular hypothetical client, that decision criteria has to come from that person, right? Because they're the ones that know at this particular point in their life what is important. And the place that I really work with folks is to get clear about that and to really check that and then to own that. And sometimes, that's the difficult part of it. Like you've made a clear decision that makes so much sense as to why you go in a certain direction. And then you can own the fact that maybe you won't get on the New York Times bestseller list for your book, right? You can own the fact that you're choosing to not make as much money as maybe your peer that you graduated business school with, but you absolutely claim and own the kind of results that you have in the definition of success. And I think that's the part of maturity and responsibility that you have to yourself, so that you don't have what my friend Martha Beck calls compare and despair, right? Where it's like there will always be somebody richer, cuter, smarter, luckier, always. I don't care who it is. There's always somebody you can find who appears to have more than you have. Yep. So you will just drive yourself totally insane if you don't, own your choices. And and that's something, I look in the mirror every day and I tell myself, it's like I make choices I have made choices at different stages of my life to not grow and expand in a huge level because I really wanted to be home with my family. And so I need to own that choice. And when I find myself, whining to myself about why somebody else is making more money, then I can say, wait a minute, if that was my choice and priority, then I would do that. And then at different stages of business and life, I can make that choice and feel good about that too.
I love that. Pam, where can folks find you and what are you working on these days?
Yeah, so they can find me at PamelaSlim.com. And I'm excited because a brand new website is going to be launching in just a couple of weeks. So depending upon when this interview goes live, you can see that there. I'm working on a new book. So I'm working on a new book that I'm super excited about to help people really understand like where to find their customers from a perspective of like natural ecosystems of people. And so I'm working on the proposal for that, and we'll be talking with my publisher about that, probably get that going this year. And then I'm also kicking off new work with companies that serve the small business market of just doing advocacy and brand evangelism for a couple of companies that I really believe in. So that's what I'm up to.
That's awesome. You've got a great looking plate. Thank you so much, Pam. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.